Okay, this is an example of some mistakes that you probably won't want to make when you model. So this is part digit a digit from a clock face that I printed up, and you can see it has a decimal place here and a cutout for another decimal place where because this is from left to right. This is digit 3 of 4. So here's some mistakes. Other than the fact that the print looks awful, like you can see it in the glare there, how you can see clearly there was Kapton on the bed and it was bubbly, and some parts of it have been treated with acetone, and it just looks awful. That didn't matter to me though, because this wasn't contract work. This is just for my own stuff. I thought it would be fun, and I could tolerate the blemishes. Most of that turned out pretty well. The frame was done in ABS, so I'm going to try and the warp isn't very severe on this particular one. Some of the other digits have much more severe warp. It's pretty clear there. So that warp it's just something that you deal with ABS. That being said, if I did it over again, I'd redo it in PLA because it doesn't have the warping issues. It's a lot easier to work. There's no reason for that this part has to be ABS. The digits, the translucent parts are ABS. I haven't found a clear PLA that I'm satisfied with, but so that part might need to be in ABS, and I did suffer some warp on those as well. So, and it's not very evident, but you can kind of see how it's not quite flush on both sides. Let's see. Again, this panel, this was actually, I think, the last panel I ran off. So and I'll show you the others later once the unit's complete. But they got progressively better, and if you're a meter away, it's noticeable. So some mistakes. There is no reason to have all of that plastic there. Even though it's an ABS, I would have suffered less warp had I not made the enclosure rise all the way past those lights. Now, I kind of had to do that because I didn't want light bleed over from one segment to the other. And so to some extent or another, that was necessary. But all of this chaff on the side, none of this needed to be here. And this was probably the larger cause of the warp. Wherever you get dense areas seems to exacerbate things, as do sharp corners. So again, design constraint. There we go. Design constraint was the thing has to fit together and look reasonably uniform. So I couldn't really get away with a curved edge there, but the screw holes were done in the model, but I've drilled them out since. I haven't put all the wiring or the PWM boards in here. I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you what's on the back here. Those are LED strips that are face down. So that's all they are. The model, the segments for the model have little troughs cut out so that those fit in there flush, and that worked out pretty well. So that's holding in there all right. This also worked pretty well. That's just a 5mm LED that's just press fit into there. The thing is way too thick. I'd probably, if I were going to do it over, and I'm not, but if I were going to do it over, I'd probably make that about half the height, and that would have solved a lot of the issues. That was better. That would have solved a lot of the issues, saved a lot of plastic. But so up here, you can see that there's kind of like indents in the sides of the wall. The indent on the left is a little bit too subtle, because in that indent goes the PWM board. Like this. There we go. Adafruit 24 channel PWM board. Could be anything, but this is what I had. And that just sits in there pretty cleanly like that. It's just a tight fit, and I'm not gonna make everyone angry by trying to do it one-handed. So there's a bit of a standoff that comes off of the back of this, and the whole thing gets mounted on an aluminum plate. So even though that capacitor is the size that it is, it's still going to clear the rear of the plate when it's fully seated. But Yeah, that's that part. Some mistakes I made because this is, I think, the third iteration of that shape. Not the print itself, just that shape. 7 segments or 7 segment displays are kind of, there's some weird geometry issues you got to pay attention to. Started out with a vertical arrangement, but that doesn't look very good. It's hard to distinguish the digits, which is why they're slanted in the first place. So you want the thing slanted, but you have to do it. These corners, if you slant it after you have the vertical stuff and these bevels already put in, these will slant at a different rate, and therefore these edges will be different lengths, and therefore they will not all fit mutually in each other's slots. So there's a lot of complication that goes into shearing and whatnot, and so you just have to. It's just not obvious. You'll probably have to mess it up a couple of times in order to understand all the stuff at play. I probably still don't. I still make mistakes like this, but as long as you're aware of it, then it makes life a little easier. So other than those, the larger modeling challenge, because this was one of my first complex models, certainly my first piece that I used 2 plastics in or more. But this piece is it came out workable, but just little stuff, man. Little stuff that drives you nuts after you do it, causes you a lot of grief while you're doing it, and there's no need for it. So it would have been thinner. The shape came out well though. So I'll post the models for this online as well. That's it for now.